Here's a tax strategy that the elite use that the IRS doesn't want you to know about. It's called hiring your children in your business. All right, I'm just kidding. The IRS could not care less if you knew about this tax strategy. In fact, it's not some kind of strategy of the elite or the rich or something like that. It's simply a great thing to utilize if you're a business owner with a child and you have a job that they can do in your business. Now, something the IRS definitely doesn't want you to know is how to implement this tax strategy fraudulently or incorrectly. So, it's good to understand the basics surrounding this tax strategy so that you can implement it both correctly and effectively. So when it comes to the tax strategy of hiring your child in your business, there are 3 important steps to keep in mind. Step number 1, find a job in your business that you can hire your child to actually do. Step number 2, pay them the highest fair and reasonable wage that you can pay them to do that job. And step number 3, don't pay them as 1099, but put them on payroll and pay them as a W-2 employee. So as you can see, boiled down, it's a pretty simple tax strategy. But the devil's in the details, and the tax fraud is in the complete disregard of those details. So, in that vein, let's dig into these steps a little bit more. Step number 1, find a job in your business that your child can actually do and hire them to do that job. This is the first and primary step of this tax strategy. If you cannot satisfy this step, then this tax strategy is not for you. Maybe not yet. Maybe not until your child is old enough to perform some kind of task or duty for your business that you can actually pay them for. And now you might be thinking to yourself, well, in that case, what age can I hire my kid to do something for my business? And here's the answer: whenever. There is no minimum age. They could be 1 day old and you can technically hire them in your business. But obviously the younger they are, the harder it is to defend whatever wage you're paying them, or the harder it is to find a job for them to actually do for your business. And you might be saying, okay, well, what could I even hire a baby or a toddler or some very young child to do in my business? The common answer you're going to find, and I'm sure I'm going to receive a number of comments about this, is hire them to be a model. And that's true. You can hire them to be a model, and it's been defended before. People have done this before. But that said, if you're going to hire your child to be a model, it is also something that's very obvious and apparent. And if you're to be audited, it would be very easy to prove whether or not you did it. So if you are saying you've hired them to be a model for your business, for advertisements and things of that nature, then you better actually follow through and produce some kind of advertisements with them, some kind of use for them on your website, anything like that, where you're actually using them as a model for your business. If you're not doing that, then this is not the tax strategy that you can use. Just because someone else used that as a defense does not mean that you can if you don't actually do it. So while that is a defense that you could use, and you should talk about it with your accountant to make sure that you can utilize it effectively if you wish to do so or wish to look into how to do that. If that is not something you're looking to do, here are 3, I think, tasks that even a very young child, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, could potentially get into for your business, and you could pay them to do this task. The first one would be administrative tasks. Administrative tasks would be things like in an office, shredding documents or scanning documents, or if they're computer savvy enough, maybe organizing some files within your network system. Those are easy tasks that a younger child could do, and it's very easy to find a fair and reasonable wage to pay them to do that work, and it could take them hours to do it. Doesn't really matter. You don't really care how long it takes to do this menial task because it's all inuring to the benefit of your household income at the end of the day. Because remember, that's the main point of this strategy. The second thing would be cleaning. Okay, it's very easy to find reasonable rates for cleaners in your areas, and children from a very young age can do certain aspects of cleaning for your office. And the third thing, if you have a type of business that requires shipping or mailing or packaging things, well, hey, guess what? Your child can do those things as well. Again, from a pretty young age, they can stuff envelopes for you, they can put on stamps, they can lick envelopes, they can put together packages to send out for items that you're shipping to people. They can do all sorts of things. And guess what? Again, very easy to find wages for warehouse workers or administrative people, things like that. So there you go. So there are 3 jobs that even a very young child could do for your business, and you do need those things to be done. And hey, why not pay your child instead of one of your more highly qualified people in your office to do that work? It's not a bad gig. And then obviously, as they grow older, they'll be able to do more skilled work, and skilled work can be paid a higher wage rather than this unskilled labor that they're doing when they're very young. So look, this strategy only gets better as your children get older. Step number 2, find the highest fair and reasonable wage that you can pay your child to do that job. Just remember, the entire point of this tax strategy is to shift income from your high tax bracket to your child's low or no tax bracket. it does not matter what you would like to do with this money afterwards. It does not matter what the standard deduction is. It does not matter what the Roth contribution limits are, because none of those things are predicates for paying your child. And unfortunately, whenever you hear about this tax strategy, people always seem to start right here at step number 2, talking about what they're going to pay their child and how they're going to pay their child on W-2. Always forgetting that oh so pesky first part that says why they're paying their child. You know, what job are you paying them for to make this certain amount of money that you're going to pay them? When you hire your kid, treat it just like any other ordinary business expense, any other ordinary business hiring. There needs to be a job that they are fulfilling for your business, and that's how you defend the wage that you end up paying them for that job, and that's why you put them on the W-2. So please do not skip step number 1, and please do not base your pay on anything other than what you can actually defend paying them. And if it ends up being higher than the standard deduction, that's still fantastic, because if your tax rate is 24% or 32% or 37%, whatever it might be, well, shifting that income over to their low tax bracket of 10 or maybe 12% is still significantly better for your household's overall tax liability. Remember that that is the key element of this tax strategy. Step number 3, don't pay them as a 1099 contractor, but put them on payroll and pay them as a W-2 employee. The reason why this step is important is mostly because if you're hiring your child to do something in your business, typically they're operating as an employee, not a contractor. And not only that, there is no way to avoid self-employment tax. Even if they're under the standard deduction federally, they will still owe self-employment tax, that 15.3% Social Security and Medicare tax on the money that you pay them. There's no way to avoid that. But if you put them on W-2, depending on how you pay them, you can actually avoid that entire 15.3%. So just to add a little bit more to this tax strategy to make it even better is you can actually avoid the employer and employee side of FICA taxes, you know, Social Security and Medicare tax on the wages you pay your child, as long as the company that's paying them is an unincorporated entity or a sole proprietorship owned solely by the parent or parents of that child. What that means is if you are a single member LLC, disregarded entity, a sole proprietor, you know, so you're filing on Schedule C on your personal tax return, or you're a partnership owned only by the parents of that minor child, then the wages you pay your child out of that business will not be subject to Social Security and Medicare tax, both to the parents, the employer, and the child. So again, this is for minor children paid out of an unincorporated entity owned solely by the parent or parents of that child. You can avoid FICA taxes completely. What this means is if you paid your child $15,000 in wages, only $15,000 is going to come out of the bank account to pay those wages. No additional payroll tax. So that is a pretty sweet deal and the icing on the cake of this tax strategy. And you might be saying, well, that's not going to apply to me because while I have a single member LLC, I elected S Corp status. So I'm definitely a incorporated entity at this point in time, or I have a partnership with a bunch of other guys I got into business with. So it looks like I'm going to have to pay my child a W-2 out of this entity, and it's going to be subject to that payroll tax. Not necessarily, because you could still set up an unincorporated entity, whether that be a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC or a partnership with you and your spouse, to pay your child for the work that they're doing. Many suggestions from other tax strategists and advisors and CPAs would be to set up a family management company, or it could even just be, hey, this is my cleaning company that I set up and they hired the kids to be cleaners for the office, or it's a marketing company I set up to hire the child models or to hire them to do social media management for me or something like that. So you can set up an unincorporated entity to have your business that you have currently set up pay, and then that company will hire the children and pay them. Again, as with everything, you want to make sure that you are talking about these things with your accountant before you set them up, so you set them up correctly, you document all the things that you're doing, and that it is very defensible if ever you're to be audited by the IRS. So just as a recap, step number 1, find a job your kid can do in your business, hire them to do that job. Step number 2, pay them the highest fair and reasonable wage that you can pay them to do that job that you found in step number 1. And step number 3, put them on W-2, don't pay them as 1099. And step 3A, if you can pay them out of an unincorporated entity like a sole proprietorship or single member LLC or a partnership owned solely by the parent or parents of that minor child, you can avoid that 15.3% FICA tax. That is the tax strategy. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification bell. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments. And if you see anything across TikTok or Instagram, be sure to tag me in those videos, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.